I am actually an enormous Elton John fan. He is actually one of my favorite musicians of all time. In fact, I've seen him live 3 times. The first time was in 2009. It was with Billy Joel. It was at the Honda Center in Anaheim. The second time was in late 2013. It was at the TD Garden in Boston, first semester of college. And the third time was actually just a few months ago at the Forum. And let me tell you, it was actually one of the best concert experiences of my entire life because of how close I was. Check it out. Within spitting distance of a legend. Rocketman, burn it out as fuel up here alone. So Rocketman is a biopic movie about the legendary classic rock singer Elton John, who is one of the best if you ask me. And it really tells his life story, you know, the ups and the downs. In some ways, it's kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody, which came out not that long ago. It was about Freddie Mercury. In here we have Taron Egerton from the Kingsman movies. He plays Elton John, or Reggie Dwight, which is his actual name. And Taron Egerton completely kills it here. I mean, I dare say that he was just as good playing Elton John as Rami Malek was playing Freddie Mercury. The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure I know how he was cast because Elton John was in the second Kingsman movie. I'm pretty sure that's how they met and they got along pretty well, I imagine. In the same production company, Marv Productions, they made the Kingsman movies and they made this movie. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. But Taron Egerton really shows more acting range in this film than I've seen in any of the Kingsman movies. Like, this movie hits some pretty dark subjects, and when Elton John is at his lowest low, Taron Egerton really conveys that in really good ways. You know, kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody, there is the drug addiction and the sex addiction and all the stuff that he goes through like Freddie Mercury did. There are points where Elton John, he would just yell in rage at someone because he had kept up all this pent-up anger and he just had to unleash it because he was so pissed off. I completely bought it. I was like, shit, he's pissed. I'd be scared of him right now. And in this movie, we also have Jamie Bell as Bernie Taupin. Now, for those of you who don't know, Elton John and Bernie Taupin have been songwriting partners literally for decades. They are the best of friends. They've never had an argument. They've stuck everything out and they're still together as partners to this day. Not like relationship partners, but songwriting partners. So I pretty much knew that you couldn't make an Elton John movie without Bernie Taupin being a huge part of it. And yeah, the friendship between Elton John and Bernie Taupin was a huge part of this movie. And it was done very well. I like seeing how they met because it's just the genesis of so much great music. So many great songs came out of this partnership, like you don't understand. Hold me closer, tiny dancer. Count the headlights on the highway. Lay me down in sheets of linen. You had a busy day today. I love that song. That's one of my favorite Elton John songs. Yeah, the musical numbers in this film were really entertaining. And this is unlike Bohemian Rhapsody where there were actually like musical numbers. People would get up and dance in like choreographed sequences. It was like a musical, like a Broadway show. And not only that, but there were some fantasy elements, like when Elton John is playing at the Troubadour, which is this really famous club in downtown LA. Like there's a point where he would kick up his feet and then everyone would start floating and it was all slow motion. It was pretty awesome to see. I mean, the whole soundtrack, you know, it's Elton John music and it's great, you know. If you love Elton John, if you love classic rock, if you like good music in general, then you're gonna love the soundtrack in this movie. Some of the songs in this film, they actually started off pretty slowly. I mean, more slowly than the actual songs do. Actually, quite a few songs start off that way now that I think about it. Like, they had a slow intro, you know, it's building up the scene, it's building up the energy, and then boom, right into the song after like the first verse. It got kind of cliche after the second or third time that happened. And this is also kind of funny. Matthew Margeson did the score for this film, and the score had some, you know, Elton John songs, like you would expect it would. But he also scored the Kingsman movies, you know, that just tightens the community even more. Now, of course, one of the topics that this movie had to touch on is Elton John's homosexuality. Today, Elton John is one of the biggest symbols of gay pride that I can think of, which makes this a pretty good movie to come out just in time for Pride Month. And again, like Bohemian Rhapsody, I feel like Rocketman touched on Elton John's homosexuality in a way that was accurate to the time. It was respectful. In one scene, it kind of got graphic. It's a rated R movie. But really, when it all comes down to it, I praise this movie for touching on the reason that Elton John is one of my favorite musicians of all time. You know, like a lot of musicians back in those days, he went through a drug addiction, and it got really bad. You know, and all this this success, fame, and glory, there is depression in there. He had depression, he had bulimia, he had all sorts of stuff. The reason Elton John is one of my favorite musicians of all time is because he went down that rabbit hole and he came out the other side. He came out stronger and he's still standing better than he ever did. To me, that's just so inspiring. He represents, this might sound cheesy, but Elton John to me represents hope. Because he was in a really, really bad situation. His life was fucked up. He went deeper and deeper into this downward spiral of just really bad shit. And at one point he just said, you know what? I don't want to end up like this. I want to fight this and I want to live. You know, not every musician makes it through that bad phase. It's just a good reminder whenever I'm in a bad situation and I feel like depressed or whatever, I can remind myself that Elton John probably had it worse than I did and he made it through to the other side. And he is stronger now than he ever was. To me, anyway, that's just one of the greatest stories ever. So in the end, Rocketman was one of my favorite movies of the year. Great acting, great emotion, great musical numbers. I can't ask for anything more from a biopic about one of my favorite musicians of all time. So for Rocketman, I will say, go see this movie right now. I'm telling you, next they should do David Bowie. That would be awesome. Call it Space Oddity or Ziggy Stardust or something, I don't know. So Rocketman, have you seen it yet? What did you think about it? What is your favorite Elton John song? And what classic rock artist would you like to see a biopic about next? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.